Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. So guys, I'm going to break this video down in two parts, talking about the recent Joshua and Usyk fight where it sort of landed on Sky. Then I'm going to talk about what Derek James said about Canelo, about it being he's not pound for pound worthy. Firstly, smash the like button on this video. Let's hit the like button, share the video, guys. Make sure you watch the video from start to finish. It helps the algorithm, as you guys know. So yeah, let's get into this video. Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk is going to be shown on Sky Sports. It looks like they've won the bid to host the fight on their broadcast now. When AJ signed that deal with DAZN, everybody automatically thought that the Usyk fight would be on DAZN, and I actually think that Eddie Hearn and DAZN probably thought that as well. I think they're backtracking now in some of their comments that they're making. They said we never had control of it, which they probably shouldn't. They probably would have known. So maybe I'm wrong there. Maybe they generally thought they'll win the rights, or maybe it was taken out of their hands. I heard it was down to who was willing to pay the most money, but it didn't make sense because did a bid go in from DAZN and did Sky outbid them, which is kind of surprising with the amount of money that DAZN have got. Surely they'd be willing to put in a lot more money than Sky. Bearing in mind they've just signed a huge deal with AJ. AJ's a winner because he probably gets a big fight, and Sky would have put in phenomenal amount of money. So the guys that really won are the boxers, which is the most important thing really, because they're the ones that, you know, are putting their lives on the line. But from a broadcaster point of view, it's definitely not a good look for DAZN after, you know, signing AJ and then the fight that was going to be big, because we don't know what fight AJ is going to have after this. Is it going to be worth, you know, the pay-per-view buys and the subscriptions? Are they going to be able to draw subscriptions from his next fights? I'm sure they will, but here's where there's an asterisk on that deal. I personally think this fight, I thought that DAZN were taking a massive risk, right? Because even if AJ, they got this AJ Usyk fight on their platform, if AJ had lost, what would happen to that deal? That's what I was thinking. What would happen to that deal? But now it's even worse, because now they haven't got that fight on their platform. So they haven't got that fight on their platform, right? So now they're not even going to have that fight, which was going to be a massive fight, which would have definitely got them got them a lot of subscriptions. They would have made a lot. I'd like to think they would have made a lot of money on the platform with that fight. So now they're not going to have that, and there's AJ's going into the fight against Usyk as a massive underdog. Most of us think he's going to lose. So if he loses that fight, DAZN are going to have a depleted fighter where his credibility is going to be hit. He's not going to be champion, right? His reputation would have taken a hit. And what's going to be, like, AJ would probably want to fight on, especially with the fact that that deal is going to be there. So he knows that he's got security, he's going to make even more money. But how much of a valuable asset is he going to be if he was to lose to Usyk for DAZN? So DAZN, for me, are taking a massive risk. And now it's an even bigger risk, because he's not fighting on DAZN for this fight. So the money, the everything that they would have gained from Usyk Joshua being on their platform, they no longer are going to gain that anymore, because now it's not on their platform. So Sky are going to benefit from the pay-per-view numbers, the revenue, everything. Now, I don't know how much money Sky are put in. The money that Sky are put in, are they going to even be able to generate that money back? I don't know. So it might be a situation where Sky might have just done it to rub in DAZN's faces to hurt them. Bearing in mind, knowing that AJ signed a deal with them, even if we make a loss, right, DAZN are going to be in a tricky spot, especially if AJ loses. They're going to have a depleted asset. So this way they're hurting DAZN, you know. It's a very risky, I said as soon as they signed him, I said it was very risky. But now it's made it even worse. It's made it even riskier, because they're no longer going to get the benefit of the AJ Usyk fight. So, yeah, DAZN is in a bit of a difficult spot with that, in my opinion. I think it was a bold move giving him that bigger deal in the first place, just because AJ is not Canelo. With Canelo, even though Canelo's lost, Let's be honest, Canelo's lost. And that's the uncertainty of boxing. But Canelo's a lot more assured, a better fighter. The chances of him losing are far less than AJ losing. And there's a good chance that AJ loses against Usyk and his value isn't going to be the same. So it's very important for DAZN, and DAZN will be praying that AJ gets the win here. Because if he doesn't, that might be a very, very poor signing from a financial, commercial point of view. Like, listen, I'm pretty sure AJ will still have some value. And if they can make the Wilder fight or they can make a big fight. But one's got to think about it. DAZN didn't sign AJ paying him all that money to make second string fights. They signed him to fight Alexander Usyk, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury. Those are the kind of fights that they signed him for, bearing in mind the money that they've invested and they've just signed him for. You know, they're not looking to AJ to fight Dillian White. Now, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't mind that because that would be a huge fight as well. Might probably sell out Wembley. It'd probably do good pay-per-view numbers. But I don't know whether it'd do as bigger pay-per-view numbers if AJ was to lose anymore. I don't know I don't know how he will be perceived by the public. People might just view him as a busted flush. Like, what was his name? Colin Hart said that Joshua might be washed up. You know, I don't think he's washed up, but I think that, you know, if he loses to Alexander Usyk again, where's the motivation going to be? How's he going to be able to come back from that? And remember, when you're a guy like Anthony Joshua, you know, and you've made all that kind of money, it's very difficult for you to get up for like fights where you're going to be getting paid half of what you were getting paid. And that's what's going to happen. His money's going to decrease. Think about it. If he loses, his money's not going to be the same. His money's going to go down because AJ gets paid phenomenal amount of money, like 40, 50. That's not going to be the same. That's all going to decrease. So whether he'll have the motivation to, like, the motivation is the DAZN deal. So he will definitely continue. It's just whether DAZN are going to be able to make it worthwhile. Now, AJ won't care about that because AJ's getting paid regardless. So he's going to be making money. And I think he'll continue because I don't think he's the type of guy to just quit after a couple of defeats. I think he'll continue. But the thing is, for DAZN, they're going to be hit massively. Because like I said, is AJ going to be able to recoup the money that they're investing in him? I'm not so sure. And that's going to be a big concern for DAZN moving forward. They know that this fight, and now that it's not even on their platform, they're not going to benefit anything from it. They need AJ to win. Because if AJ wins, he grabs all the belts, and a fight with Tyson Fury is a possibility. And even that's going to be difficult because Tyson Fury fights on BT. He's with Frank Warren. How are they going to be able to? How are they going to be able to come to an agreement there? I think a Wilder fight would probably be a lot more possible, especially if AJ wins. If AJ wins, I think a Wilder fight would be massive. And that would probably be a fight that may interest Wilder now, just because of the fact that where Wilder is in his career. So, for me, AJ's got to win this fight. Not for himself financially, because he could retire, but I think from a career point of view, if he wants to be considered at the top, he needs to beat Usyk. Otherwise, his reputation, his credibility is going to take a massive hit. Financially, it doesn't matter to AJ. For DAZN, financially, it's going to be a massive loss. DAZN are going to take a hit. But for Joshua, financially, he's made it already. For Joshua, it's more about credibility, respect. It's all about restoring where he was at, in his career previous to Usyk. That's what he's got to do. Otherwise, Joshua isn't going to be that guy. Like, I didn't think Joshua would beat Usyk the first time. I thought, he was having a lot of difficulties, after the Ruiz loss mentally, and he didn't look the same fighter. And then Usyk completely exposed that in that fight. I don't know whether he can overcome the difficulties that he's suffering in this rematch in order to get the win. It's going to be very difficult. I think he's a big outsider. But like I said, it's the heavyweight division. Anything's possible. If he lands one, who knows? Maybe it changes the whole complexion of the fight. But yeah, I think it's very important for him that he wins, and it's very important for DAZN that he wins. But yeah, guys, moving on. AJ obviously is fighting on Sky Sports. Canelo Alvarez, Derek James was giving an interview, and Derek James said that Canelo Alvarez is not pound for pound worthy after losing to Dmitry Bivol. He goes that he expects Canelo to beat Gennady Golovkin. But what he basically said is this. He said that, for him, the pound for pound, if you move up to, pound for pound is a guy that can move up to weight classes and win at different weight classes. Or if he goes up to heavyweight and he can win at heavyweight, that's pound for pound. I didn't understand what Derek James was saying because I totally didn't understand his explanation of pound for pound. Firstly, pound for pound is a hypothetical thing. Like, people have just made it up. What does pound for pound mean? But his interpretation of it just didn't make sense at all. For me, pound for pound is a guy that's perceived one of the most skilled. He's got one of the best resumes. And what has he done for us lately in terms of resume? Right? And obviously moving up weight classes and how he does in higher weight classes. Now, he said, well, Canelo met his match at 175. The problem is with Canelo moving to 175, Canelo moved up so many weight classes that who are you judging him against? Because there's no other fighter out there today that's moved up that many weight classes and is dominating. And is fighting the best in about his third or fourth weight class. Canelo's just done that. So who are we comparing Canelo against? So one minute, guys, give me a second. So when Derek James says that, Canelo met his match, so he can't be pound for pound. Sorry about that, guys. Who do we match Canelo against? Because who on the pound for pound list that we perceived as pound for pound fighters, who's moved up to like their fourth weight class and challenged the best when they're so undersized compared to the guy? Like Terence Crawford. A lot of people say, well, he's moved up to 3 weight class, but Terence Crawford is fighting guys his size. Terence Crawford, who's he fought? Well, he fought Kavaliauskas. He's about the same size as Kavaliauskas. He fought Amir Khan. He's about the same size as Amir Khan. He fought Kell Brook. He's about the same size. There wasn't much height difference. There wasn't much at all. What was the difference there? The size a little bit, but that's about it. And even that, there wasn't much size there. Canelo Alvarez moved up and he was like 4 inches shorter. 4 or 5 inches shorter than Bivol. He's moved up to like a fourth weight class. And remember, the jumps, from the higher you get, the jumps are far worse. Like, the jumps are far bigger. So Canelo going from 154 to 175 is massive. Crawford going from 135 to 147 is 12 pounds. Canelo's jumped over 20 pounds. So the point I'm trying to make here is that to say Canelo's not pound for pound worthy, I didn't really understand what he was saying because he didn't make a lot of sense. He said he met his match. Do I think Canelo should be pound for pound after losing? No. But do I think he's pound for pound worthy? Yeah, I think he's definitely pound for pound worthy. I definitely think he should be on the list. But is he pound for pound number 1? That's debatable. I don't think so, because I think he's lost. And then when there's a guy called Usyk who dominated the cruiserweight division, then moved up to heavyweight and won a unified heavyweight championship. And then when you think about pound for pound, you think about a guy moving to heavyweight, and the difference from cruiserweight to heavyweight is massive. Canelo Alvarez has never weighed in where he's 20 pounds less than his opponent. Alexander Usyk weighed in against Anthony Joshua and he was almost 20 pounds less. 20 pounds is almost the jump that Canelo's made throughout his whole career. Hence why I think Usyk is the right pound for pound number 1. He dominated the cruiserweight division and now he moved up to heavyweight. And he's not dominated, but he beat probably the guy with the most belts in the heavyweight division, even though Joshua's not the best, it's Fury. But the Fury fight's not happening for whatever reason. But Usyk for me is pound for pound number 1. I don't think that's debatable. And then probably Crawford, and then you could probably slot in Inoue and then Canelo. Canelo's top 5 for me. But that loss has definitely hurt him. Like, you can't put a guy that's lost. Because pound for pound is also, what have you done for me lately? And Canelo's last fight shows a loss. So you can't have somebody that's had a loss pound for pound number 1. It just doesn't make sense, right? Because for me, like I said, from the way I rank pound for pound is, what have you done for me lately? Your resume, your skills, and yeah, how many weight classes you've gone, all of these things. So for me, Canelo Alvarez is definitely pound for pound worthy. I just don't think he's pound for pound number 1. And I don't think anyone can push that after him losing a fight against Bivol. because if you lose a fight, that means your last fight on your resume, your current form is you've lost. Even though it's against a guy that was way bigger than you, it's pretty irrelevant because you went and took that fight. You can't be pound for pound number one with a loss. Likewise, Bivol can't be pound for pound number one beating Canelo just because he was pound for pound number one. For me, that's not how it works. For me, it's what have you done altogether. And one win, even against an elite fighter like Canelo, isn't enough for me to put you pound for pound number one. So yeah, that I didn't understand Derek James's breakdown. He said, well, if you go up to heavyweight, you can beat the guy at heavyweight, but Canelo can't go to heavyweight. Chocolatito at one point in his career was pound for pound number one. He can't go to heavyweight. Floyd couldn't have beaten Klitschko in his prime. So what I'm saying is, I don't understand that. I don't understand what Derek James was saying, because if that's the case, then that's nonsense. Because if Floyd Mayweather moves to heavyweight, he's not going to beat Vladimir Klitschko, and he was pound for pound number one. So I didn't quite understand. I didn't quite understand what he was saying. Maybe what he was trying to say, he probably didn't explain it well, or I don't know. But yeah, he said he met his match and he's not pound for pound worthy. I don't quite agree with that. I don't think your pound for pound status is just on you taking a loss, and that means you should be taken off the list altogether. No. Pound for pound is, you can't be pound for pound number one. Pound for pound number one, because if you've taken a loss, that means your last fight was a loss. Doesn't matter who it was against, it's a loss. Because Canelo thought he could beat Bivol. Canelo thought he could go and beat Bivol. So he went there and he couldn't beat him. So that is a loss. And you can't be pound for pound number one. Now, if Canelo Alvarez decides, you know what, I'm not a 175 pounder, and stays back at 168 and stays there and beats everyone at 168 and has so many title defenses, has a record-breaking number of title defenses, then he can also be pound for pound number one that way. Because he'd be fighting at a weight class where he's small in that weight class as well. However, he's now decided that, look, I can't move up any more than this, and I'm going to look to dominate my weight class of 168, which is also, for me, pound for pound worthy, especially if you're fighting elite competition. Like, Gennady Golovkin, for me, was never pound for pound number one. I'll tell you why, because his resume wasn't strong enough to deserve pound for pound number one. Even though he had a record number of title defenses, he didn't have the competition to put himself pound for pound number one. And that's what Derek James was also saying about Lomachenko. Lomachenko's lost. So how can he be pound for pound? Because he went up and he lost. So you can't be pound for pound. But it doesn't necessarily work like that if you lost. If a guy's taking more chances than the other guys on the pound for pound list. So for example, Lomachenko is fighting guys that are way bigger than him. He's undersized. He's taking more risks. But if you look at, for example, Inouye's as well. But Inoue, moving up at the smaller weight classes isn't as hard. Moving up the higher weight classes. So let's look at a fighter. For example, who's on the pound for pound list? Probably Bivol, for example. Like, some have him on the pound for pound list, some don't. I'm trying to think of a fighter that's on the pound for pound list. Like Teofimo Lopez, for example. He was on the pound for pound list, yeah? For beating Lomachenko. People put him at number 4 or number 5. But Teofimo Lopez had only had one win against Lomachenko, which was against a guy that was smaller, moving up. Right? But he was pound for pound number one, so it was seen as a great win. But let's not forget, he was fighting somebody that was smaller than him. Same with Bivol. Bivol even himself said, I'm not a king because I've just beaten a guy that's come and tried to take my title and I beat him. So you can't be pound for pound number one beating a smaller guy, irrespective of whether that guy is pound for pound number one. You have to do a lot more. And same with Teofimo. People were putting him number 5, pound for pound, when he had one win. For me, that's very premature. For me, guys in the top 5 should be guys that have a proven record. Guys that have done it over a long period of time. Against the top. Not have one win and they go to pound for pound number 4. That's basically what happened with Lopez. And I don't think over one win you should be moving up to pound for pound number 4 or 5 or 6. That's ridiculous. Because really, we don't really know how good you are with one top win. You know, but that's just my take on it. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you agree with Derek James that Canelo's not pound for pound worthy? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.